On our 5th wedding anniversary, Victor's beautiful secretary suddenly came to my door. "I'm pregnant," she said. "It's time for you to step aside." Looking at her confident and smug face, I froze for a moment. At 15, I met Victor. At 18, we fell in love. At 20, we fought against our parents just to be together. At 24, we got married. At 26, I gave birth to the daughter he had always dreamed of. Now, we had made it through everything. And at 28, he cheated. Chapter 1. The doorbell rang just as I placed a bowl of hot soup on the table. The warmth still burned at my fingertips when I reached up to touch my earlobe and opened the door. Standing outside was a familiar face. The girl was young, beautiful, and carried herself with arrogance and pride. She tapped the door twice, smiling faintly. "Can we talk inside, Mrs. Victor?" My heart skipped a beat. I knew her. She was the beautiful secretary Victor had hired that year. At the time, I had just given birth to our daughter. While the company was rising fast and business dinners were constant, he said he didn't want me to exhaust myself, and others suggested that since the wife had little time to attend events, Victor needed a smart and pretty assistant to accompany him. My mind drifted back. Victor had held me in his arms, kissing my lips gently. His hand caressed my still soft belly, his lips brushing reverently against it. "Nicole, after all these years, don't you know where my heart is?" He bit my lip playfully, murmuring, "Don't you trust me?" And I did. When our daughter turned 1 month old, that same secretary, the one he often praised for her outstanding work performance, came to deliver a gift. At the banquet, while guests filled the hall, she had reached out naturally to smooth the crease on Victor's shirt. A strange unease pricked at me. After the guests left, I stubbornly took Victor's hand and told him to fire her. He did, immediately. But now, standing in front of me, the same woman set down her expensive handbag, her gaze sweeping mockingly across the table filled with food. "I'm pregnant, Mrs. Victor," she said. "It's time for you to step aside." So, he might have replaced her at the company, but not in his bed. Chapter 2. Zoe brushed a lock of hair behind her ear. When her words sank in, my eyes dropped to her slightly swollen belly, glowing with a self-satisfied air of motherhood. I set down the cup of water I had just poured for her. My movements stilled, but my voice stayed calm. "Did Victor send you?" She tilted her chin up arrogantly. "Who else? Do you really think I could find out where you live without him?" The company had grown rapidly and made plenty of enemies. Victor had always protected me well. He never revealed where my daughter and I lived. No one knew our address. So, even if he hadn't told her directly, his hands were hardly clean. After 10 years together, on the day of our 5th wedding anniversary, I finally understood. My husband really had cheated on me. She waited for me to speak, clearly expecting me to scream or cry. But instead, I smiled. "All right." Zoe blinked, startled. Her composure faltered. She reached out to push me aside, but bumped into the table. The bowl of hot soup sitting on the edge tipped over. She jumped back quickly, but half the soup splashed onto me. The door slammed shut behind her. I slowly crouched down, my phone screen lighting up. A message, 5 minutes ago. "Something urgent came up at work. I'll be home later. Eat first if you're hungry." I kept holding the phone, my fingers frozen midair. And in that moment, Zoe's smug words echoed in my mind. "Do you believe it, Mrs. Victor? He's not coming home tonight." Chapter 3. I knew exactly where he would be. I hailed a cab and headed straight to the private club where I used to accompany him for business gatherings. As I pushed open the doors of the Chang'an Club, a doorman bowed and gestured politely. "Madam, Mr. Victor is this way," still in the usual room. The golden counter was cluttered with bottles, and a couple was passionately kissing in the corner near the entrance. I squinted. It wasn't Victor. Inside the room, a few men were drinking and chatting, while a girl sang in the background, probably warming up the crowd. She wasn't dressed provocatively, high-waisted tight pants and a flowing silk blouse with wide sleeves. The spotlight happened to fall on the top of her head, casting a soft glow on her youthful face. She wore delicate diamond earrings that shimmered against her fair skin. Victor put down his glass and beckoned her over. She walked straight to him, bending low, exposing a generous amount of cleavage. Black lace beneath the shirt wrapped around her pale chest, forming a sharp and eye-catching curve. She didn't seem the least bit shy as she poured a glass of whiskey and handed it to him sweetly. Her fingers lightly brushed against Victor's thin lips, and I watched as he opened his mouth and bit down gently on her pale skin. I stood frozen at the doorway of the private room, as if thrown into an ice cellar. If Zoe's words earlier had merely made me doubt his loyalty, then what I saw now felt like a brutal slap across my face. People inside continued chatting. Victor's phone screen lit up, and from a distance, I could see it was a photo of me and our daughter. The girl beside him, seemingly jealous, traced circles on Victor's chest with her finger. "Your wife is really beautiful." Victor exhaled a puff of smoke and said indifferently, "She is very pretty, but after marrying her, it's nothing special." It felt as though every organ inside my body shattered. Nothing special. That's what Victor thought about marrying me. I took a step back, instinctively slamming the door that had only been slightly ajar, not realizing that I had just startled everyone inside. Chapter 4. Victor heard the noise at the door. He instinctively thought it was Zoe throwing another tantrum. Tired of coaxing women who made scenes, he wrapped up his social gathering quickly and drove home. Unlike those other women who never stopped making trouble, his wife was always gentle and never caused him any headaches. She took care of their daughter and the household perfectly. She even looked after his parents' health, arranging appointments with specialists several times a month. After so many years together, they were accustomed to each other's rhythms, no need for further adjustment. Home, to him, was the one place he could truly relax. As he turned a corner, he saw an elderly couple walking out of a flower shop. The old man was holding a small bouquet of roses, proudly presenting it to his wife. She smiled so brightly her eyes curved into crescents, scolding him for wasting money while carefully admiring the flowers again and again. Victor suddenly pulled over, but the flower shop's shutter was already coming down. In that moment, he suddenly remembered the look on Nicole's face the first time he had ever given her roses, and realized that he hadn't bought his wife flowers in a very long time. He ran after the old couple and explained his situation. The elderly woman smiled, keeping one rose for herself and handing him the rest. "May you and your beloved grow old together, full of love." Victor smiled, thanked her, and placed the bouquet on the passenger seat. But when he opened the door at home, the warmth that always filled their house was gone. The table was covered with the food she had cooked for him, all his favorites, now cold. A bowl of soup had spilled on the floor, broken porcelain scattered among faint traces of blood. A wave of dread rose in Victor's chest, gripping his heart. He dialed Nicole's number. Chapter 5. I stood beneath the eaves, trying to stay out of the rain, but icy drops still splashed against me, soaking my hair. My phone battery was red. I made a call to my mother, asking her to take care of our daughter. I rarely sent my daughter to my mother's house these past years, but today, because it was our wedding anniversary, I had. A few days ago, Victor said it had been a long time since we'd had any time. I agreed. Things had been hectic lately, so I arranged everything early and sent our daughter away. I just didn't expect him to forget. The convenience store I often stopped by seemed closed. When the lights went out, I rubbed my numb legs. I had walked this road countless times. When I was 19, Victor and I fought against everyone, our teachers' warnings, our classmates' gossip, our parents' threats. We endured everything together. Back then, Victor's grades were poor, and the teacher publicly humiliated him on stage. He loosened his collar, met my gaze, and said, smiling, "Love can overcome anything. Nothing can tear us apart." He began studying late into the night so he could sit next to me. Eventually, our names appeared side by side among the top students. He held me then and said he could never live without me. But just a few years later, when others mentioned me, he said indifferently, marrying her wasn't anything special. The rain grew heavier, rising above my ankles, but I didn't want to wait anymore. It was over. I walked down that same street we had once walked together, only this time in the opposite direction. Water pooled around my knees. The feeling reminded me of our honeymoon by the sea, the waves sweeping me away after the safety rope snapped. Victor hadn't realized I'd gone under until I disappeared, even though he was already safe on shore. He dove back in to save me. When we reached the beach, exhausted and trembling, he laughed and said, "Thank God I didn't lose you." Back then, I truly believed nothing could ever separate us again. But 4 years later, he cheated. Stumbling through the flooded street, I realized too late that the heels I'd worn for our anniversary dinner had gotten stuck in a drain grate. My ankle twisted sharply, and I fell hard to the ground. I couldn't tell whether the wetness on my face was rain or tears. As I gasped for breath between sobs, a handkerchief suddenly appeared before me. A black umbrella hovered overhead, and a gentle voice spoke softly. "Do you remember me?" Oliver saw my blank expression and gently wiped the rain and tears from my face. "Forgive me," he murmured. Then a warm cashmere coat was draped over my shoulders, the collar carefully adjusted. "The wind's too strong, let me give you a ride." My phone vibrated nonstop. I answered without expression. Victor's panicked voice came through. "Where are you hurt? Did you go to the hospital?" "I'm coming to get you." I took a deep breath and interrupted. "Victor, let's get a divorce." There was a pause, then his voice turned desperate. "Nicole, I didn't mean to come home late tonight. I even bought you flowers. Don't be like this. Please, we're not getting divorced." My fingers went limp, the phone slipped, the screen went black, and everything went silent. It was over. Oliver's voice brought me back. "Let me take you home," he said softly. "I just came from visiting your mother." I turned my head, forcing the tears back. "Thank you." He didn't speak again. The car was warm, but the cold inside me wouldn't fade. When the car stopped, Oliver suddenly leaned forward, alarmed, and touched my forehead. The world dimmed, my vision blurred. "Nicole. Nicole, wake up!" Chapter 6. After the call ended, Victor rubbed his temples and declined the barrage of calls coming in from Zoe. He had never felt fear like this before. Nicole had always been graceful and composed. She had never once run away from home. So when he heard her calm voice saying the word divorce, it felt as though a claw had gripped his heart and torn it apart. How could she bear to do this? Since she was 15, she had never spoken to him in such a distant tone. Maybe he had spent too much time with Zoe lately, neglecting Nicole's feelings. But it was fine. After all, they had more than 10 years of love between them and a lovely daughter too. He clenched the rain-soaked bouquet of roses silently in his hand. Amid the chaos in the house, Victor suddenly caught a strong, artificial scent of perfume. Nicole never used perfume. He abruptly stood up, scanning the room, and then noticed a small earring on the floor. The pink diamond embedded in it, he recognized it immediately. His assistant had brought it back from an auction, and he had given it to Zoe. His pupils widened, and his hand holding the phone began to tremble. But his gaze soon fell upon a framed photo, the three of them smiling together as a family. His tense fingers slowly loosened. No, Nicole would come back. It was just a meaningless flirtation. A bit of theater, Nicole would understand. This talk of divorce was probably just her way of forcing him to come home again. He knew how to handle that. From now on, he would make it right. He would be a good husband to Nicole, and a good father to their daughter. Chapter 7. When I opened my eyes again, the first thing I saw was my daughter's red, tear-swollen eyes. Seeing me awake, she carefully wrapped her little arms around my arm. "Mommy, are you tired? Sophia won't make you angry anymore." "Mommy, don't be tired." Oliver pushed open the hospital room door, holding an old-fashioned tin lunchbox. "Your aunt stayed up all night watching over you." She looked exhausted, so I asked her to go home and rest. I quickly thanked him, but Oliver only pressed his lips together and smiled softly. "It's all right, Nicole," he said. "The doctor said you're fine now. Let me take you and Sophia home." I held Sophia's hand and politely declined, although he still looked worried. Oliver called a taxi for us before leaving. "Didn't Mommy go on a date with Daddy?" "Where's Daddy?" For a moment, I didn't know how to answer. I froze in place. Sophia ran to the house monitor, her little fingers unlocking the door, then pointed at the screen near the security camera. "Mommy, who's that lady? Why is she with Daddy?" I leaned closer. On the screen, Zoe clung to Victor coquettishly. Victor's face was tense, but he didn't push her away. So, it had come to this. Even into our home. My eyes burned, the world turning blurry. I already knew the truth yesterday, yet seeing it still hurt, like a wound you know will heal one day. But each time it cracks open again, the dull pain still cuts deep. Sophia fumbled to wipe away my tears, then hugged me tightly. From her pocket, she carefully took out a small, sticky piece of candy. Mommy, don't cry. Mommy, eat candy. It was a half-melted white rabbit milk candy. She offered it to me proudly, her eyes shining, just like Victor's sly fox-like smile the first time he kissed me. As Sophia fed me the candy, I suddenly felt unbearably tired. After thinking for a long time, I finally said, Mommy wants to live separately from Daddy. Would Sophia want to stay with Mommy? Sophia buried her head in my arms, her voice weak and soft. Daddy has that lady now. Sophia wants to stay with Mommy. Just then, Zoe called. I pressed the record button before answering. Her tone was more arrogant than ever. Victor already gave me the house key. You'd better pack your things and get out soon. I don't want you in my way. Victor asked you to tell me this, didn't he? I asked calmly. My composure seemed to irritate her. She raised her voice, almost shouting, as if desperate to provoke me. Of course. He's long tired of an old, dull woman like you. I pinched my brow, my hand tightening around Sophia's. So you're saying Victor not only allows your behavior but even asked you to tell me, to admit his affair himself? Zoe's voice turned sharp, like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. The real mistress is the one who's not loved. Nicole, you'd better get out of my house. I looked up. The sting in my eyes vanished completely. More than 10 years of love collapsed in an instant. After a long silence, I felt a small hand cover my eyes. Sophia's trembling voice whispered, Mommy, don't cry. I crouched down so we were eye level. Sophia, I asked softly, if Mommy and Daddy separate, will you be sad? Sophia shook her head, precocious as always. She wrapped her little arms around my neck and buried her face in my shoulder. Grandma said a man should only be with the woman he truly loves. But Sophia saw Daddy with another lady. She blinked innocently. That's wrong. Then if Daddy did something wrong, I asked gently, should Mommy forgive him? I stroked her soft hair and asked with respect, Sophia, do you want Mommy and Daddy to stay together? She frowned, thinking hard, then shook her head firmly. Sophia wants Mommy to be happy. Daddy doesn't love Mommy anymore, but Sophia loves Mommy. Chapter 8. It felt like 10 years of love couldn't withstand a single blow. But I had Sophia. As I watched Zoe bombard me with pictures and videos of her with Victor, I suddenly went numb. After saving all the evidence, I drafted the divorce agreement. Somehow, it felt like a relief. I looked down as the housekeeper loaded the last suitcase onto the truck. Holding Sophia's hand, I left, without looking back even once. That's it, Victor. The vow you made that year, I'll make it come true. Those who betray true feelings deserve to be pierced by 1,000 arrows. Victor. Chapter 9. Finding Nicole wasn't difficult. After all, their daughter was still attending school in Jingzhou. No matter how stubborn Nicole was, she wouldn't abandon her daughter's future. Victor, exhausted, rubbed his temples. Just as he was about to go to the hospital to pick her up, he caught a glimpse of his wrinkled shirt collar in the mirror. Nicole used to take care of these things. She had only been gone a day, and he already looked so worn out. Suddenly, the door rang. Victor pulled his coat close to hide the wrinkled shirt underneath. But it was Zoe who had come. A flash of irritation crossed his face as he asked coldly, Why are you here? Seeing the usually gentle Victor expressionless, Zoe felt a chill inside. Still, she went up to him and clung to his arm playfully. Can't I come? I'll be moving in sooner or later anyway. Victor suddenly remembered the pink diamond earring. His gaze sharpened. You went to see Nicole. His tone was certain. Zoe panicked, unsure how she had given herself away. She knew that men, especially ones with strong identities, hated being pressured like this. And Victor still had Nicole in his heart. Trying to change the subject, she quickly handed him the express envelope. The courier just dropped this off. No one was at the door, so I signed for it. Victor looked at the file in her hand, and a sudden wave of unease hit him. Just like last night, when Nicole had said she wanted a divorce. He tore open the envelope with trembling fingers. The bold words inside immediately caught his eyes. It was a divorce agreement. Zoe glanced at it and laughed inwardly, but on her face, she put on an understanding and well-behaved look. Victor, I have some good news too. Victor ignored her and turned to leave. But Zoe's sweet voice chimed again. I'm pregnant. I've had it checked. It's a boy, your heir. Victor froze mid-step, unable to move for a long while. Chapter 10. In truth, the health issue wasn't serious. Over the past few years, with more financial freedom, I had visited many hospitals and had made up for most of the health deficits. It was just the rain and overwhelming stress that made me faint. What hurt was my heart. Even though I knew he was wrong, it was still a decade of love. Like digging out rotten flesh, it hurts before the relief comes. But I didn't expect Victor to show up before I was even discharged. The moment we met, he grabbed my hand tightly and tried to pull me away. Nicole, stop this. Come home with me. I shook him off forcefully and slapped him hard across the face. I said calmly, Sophia's in the restroom. She'll be right back. Don't cause a scene in front of the child. Victor softened. Nicole, I won't be like that anymore. If it upsets you, I'll stop attending those social events. I looked up and noticed one of the buttons on his suit jacket was fastened incorrectly. He used to be meticulous, never out of place. The faint perfume scent lingering on his suit left me speechless. After a long pause, I blinked back the sting in my eyes. Let's divorce. Let's keep it dignified. Victor rubbed his temples, clearly refusing. You know my finances, everything is under your name. What are you even fighting for? No one's threatening your position. Nicole, what are you afraid of? I said nothing. Seeing that I wasn't as firm as before, he softened again, even just for Sophia, for the sake of giving her a complete family. Okay? I shook my head. You know what I truly want. Victor, you may have forgotten your vows, but I remember. I lowered my head and gathered my test results and payment receipts, thinking about when I should deliver the money to Oliver. But Victor spoke again, this time with frustration and helplessness. You women are always obsessed with romance and sentiment. All my business partners have affairs. No one hears about their wives asking for divorce every day. Men acting a little outside, it's normal, isn't it? I stopped in my tracks. I've already sent you the agreement. Sign it soon. Then I picked up Sophia and walked out. Sophia looked back and cupped her hands like a little megaphone. Daddy has someone with him. Sophia will stay with mommy. Chapter 11. Victor sat in the car and caught sight of Zoe's underwear tucked in the gap of the passenger seat. With a look of disgust, he picked it up and threw it out. Then he slammed the steering wheel hard. To be honest, out of all the possible scenarios he had imagined, the one he never considered was Nicole refusing to go home with him. He didn't understand what she was trying to pull. All the finances were delivered to her on time every month. She didn't have to lift a finger, and her shares ensured she'd never want for anything. He just didn't get it. What's so bad about living the life of a wealthy wife? Victor rubbed his temples. They were no longer children. Was love really that important? Chapter 12. The next time I saw Victor was when the cooling-off period for the divorce was almost over. I was the one who messaged him first on WeChat. Our documents were still at the old family house. Besides retrieving those, we also needed to discuss the division of property. He still hadn't signed the agreement, but I no longer wanted to wait. Looking apologetic, Victor picked up Sophia and me himself, driving us toward the countryside where our old home was. The road had now been paved with cement, but back when it was still muddy and rough, Victor and I had walked it countless times. We walked it when he came to pick me up from school, when we secretly met despite our parents' disapproval, and later, when both families finally gave in and agreed to our engagement. We walked it hand in hand. I still remember vividly the day of our wedding. He came to fetch me, leading a group of friends and relatives, walking down that road toward my house like a proud general returning from victory. The red firecracker paper and colorful confetti covered the ground, turning that path into something out of a fairy tale. I thought I would never forget it. It will always stay in my memory, but only as that, a memory. Love is a verb, not an adjective. Actions come to an end, but the images stay forever in memory. Sophia noticed both Victor's and my gaze lingering on the old building and suddenly asked, "Mommy, was this Sophia's old home?" I crouched down and picked up my daughter, who was obviously tired but still insisted on walking on her own. I nodded. Even though you weren't born back then, this was still Sophia's home. Perhaps the place stirred something in him. Victor's expression grew heavy, his eyes glassy with unshed tears. But as I looked at him, My mind drifted to other memories of this same house. I remembered the night Victor got drunk at a business dinner and called me to pick him up. When I arrived, the young woman escorting him out was wearing a short skirt that barely covered anything. He was leaning against her, his limp hand brushing against her chest just as I arrived. Later, when he was vomiting uncontrollably, I mentioned it gently, that he should be more careful, not to cross the line. It's just business entertainment, Nicole, he had said. I'd never touch them. I even find them dirty. He was still inexperienced then. That night, when we got home, he had taken my hand, gently playing with my earlobe and kissing me devoutly. Then, placing my hand somewhere intimate, he whispered, "It only likes you. Young love is never eternal." I came back to my senses. Cheating and decay never happen all at once. The signs had been laid before me long ago, I just hadn't paid attention. I think I finally understand what you want, Nicole. As the memories surged, my fingers tensed, turning pale at the knuckles. He tugged at his tie impatiently, his burgundy suit glowing sharply under the white light. He wasn't the same as before. His skin was still fair, just like when he was young. But time had etched fine lines at the corners of his eyes. I didn't want to hear any more. I quickened my pace, holding Sophia's hand, until we stopped in front of a small, green hill. Back then, our families were against us. We were too young, and everyone said it was puppy love. Just spending a little time alone together had been our greatest wish. When the moonlight came, we'd sneak out from opposite directions. By the hill was an abandoned park where he had tied up a swing. He'd hold me in his arms as we talked about everything, dreams, poetry, love, never running out of words. "I'm sorry," he said. I heard Victor's voice turn hoarse, but I didn't look back. Sophia tugged at my hand and whispered softly, "Daddy is crying." I patted her shoulder without saying anything. "Mommy, can we play on that swing over there?" Seeing me nod, Sophia ran over happily and grabbed the course ropes on both sides. I followed after her. The footsteps behind me quickened too. Victor reached out, trying to grab me. "Nicole, I'm sorry. I finally understand what it is you want." But when I looked ahead, I seemed to see the 17-year-old boy gently pushing the little swing, smiling as he looked at me. Don't forgive him. When I turned back, the school uniform had become a suit. I simply said calmly, "Let's go back to the old house. Our documents are still there. Let's get the paperwork done." Forgiving him would mean betraying myself. Sophia had played enough. Seeing both Victor and me standing there waiting, she ran over and grabbed my hand. There were weeds on the path ahead, probably because it hadn't been tended to in a long time. I was wearing a dress. While passing through the wheat field, my calf got scratched, leaving a small, shallow wound. Victor instinctively reached out to shield me, but just a few minutes later, the path reached its end. I walked a few quick steps ahead to open the door. His hand awkwardly hung in the air until Sophia pulled it, rescuing him from the moment. "Daddy, Mommy doesn't need protection anymore." Sophia looked up at him, her gaze determined. "Because the next time she comes here, Mommy will know to wear long pants. Mommy is super amazing. She never makes the same mistake twice." Victor froze for a moment, then suddenly crouched down, burying his whole face. His back moved slightly, but he made no sound. Chapter 13. The marriage certificate and household registration book were neatly placed in the old home. This old house was still decorated the same way it had been when we got married. None of the tenants over the years had ever altered the layout. Back then, when we were just starting our business, Victor and I gritted our teeth and sold the old countryside home. We took all our savings and moved into the city, just two tiny specks in the vast crowd of dream chasers. In the beginning, life was extremely hard. Our leaky basement apartment would form a thin layer of ice on the floor in winter. The windows didn't close properly, so snow would blow in with the wind. Even the frost on the door would make you shiver. We couldn't afford heating, so we clutched hot water bottles and held each other tightly. That warmth alone was enough to get us through the entire winter. Back then, we were each other's only one, each other's truest love, and the deepest love. The hardest years were also the years we loved the most. But luckily, we were blessed with good fortune. Soon, we managed to start a small company. At first, I handled accounting, secretarial work, reception duties. and logistics at the office. He said that having me there gave him peace of mind, that I was the best partner anyone could ask for. But at some point, everything began to change. Victor proved capable, our company grew bigger and more profitable by the day. He bought us a larger home and even repurchased our old countryside house. Nicole, that was our beginning. I couldn't bear to let it go. I smiled and nodded. The year the company went public, I got pregnant. I had damaged my body back in the basement days from the cold, and even the doctor said I might never be able to have children. But I did. Everyone was overjoyed. He picked me up and spun me around, his eyes brimming with tears. But it was also because I got pregnant that I gradually stepped away from the company. And that's when he brought Zoe in. Was it money that made him change? I don't know. All I know is, we've reached the end of our road. Watching him sign the divorce papers, I tucked them away and then took Sophia's hand to leave. Sophia was very sweet. As we left, she even stretched out her little hands to hug Victor and said, like a little grown-up, "Daddy, now that someone's here to take care of you, I can rest easy." He turned around and saw Zoe standing there, holding her belly. Victor instinctively looked for a trace of emotion in Nicole's face, maybe a hint of jealousy or unhappiness, but there was nothing. She simply picked up Sophia and walked away into the distance, never once looking back. Chapter 14. Victor ignored Zoe, expressionless. He looked at her radiant, self-satisfied face and tossed her a card. The password, you know it. Get rid of the child. I won't acknowledge it. Don't even think about using the baby to force me. You know what I'm capable of. Victor got into the car, slammed the door, and without hesitation drove once again toward the countryside home. He remembered that road clearly, his youngest, most passionate love had all happened there. He recalled the first time he hugged Nicole on that road, the warmth of her soft body in his arms. He also remembered their first kiss, under the moonlight, on the swing, stealing sweetness in secret. Today, as Sophia laughed on that same swing, all he could see was the Nicole from years ago in her school uniform, Nicole with two low ponytails, Nicole smiling at him gently with a backpack on her shoulders. He seemed to still see the young boy kneeling on one knee, holding her tight and declaring his love. He thought he finally understood what she had wanted all along. Love is important, but so is loyalty. Back then, Victor was so full of conviction, he didn't believe anything could come between them. Love conquers all. Victor will always stand by Nicole's side. If I, Victor, ever betray Nicole, may lightning strike me down. May I fall into the animal realm and never find peace. Victor trembled as he opened the dusty iron lock and stood in front of an entire wall covered in old letters. Their high school had a semi-militarized boarding system, and cell phones were strictly forbidden. If the school discovered even a hint of young love, they'd announce it to the whole school as a warning. But the two of them were inseparable then, pouring their love into handwritten letters, long and passionate. He opened the one he had written to Nicole on her coming-of-age ceremony. The handwriting was wild and unrestrained, just like the rebellious teenager he once was. I love your free spirit. I'll always protect your freedom. Victor loves Nicole. The whole world knows it. Before the college entrance exams, to fulfill that promise, he borrowed the school broadcasting room to confess his love publicly. Classmate Nicole, please always remember, I'll forever stand unconditionally on your side. They were both publicly criticized afterward and forced to write self-reflections. But Victor remembered none of that, only Nicole's tearful, smiling face in the crowd. Nicole had once said she loved traditional Chinese weddings. When she got married, she wanted it grand, phoenix coronet and red robes, 3 bows and 9 kowtows, a bridal procession stretching 10 miles. So in the letter he wrote her at the coming-of-age ceremony, meant for 10 years in the future, he had added, if I don't marry you, I hope the man who does will give you the full ceremony, 3 bows and 9 kowtows, 10-mile bridal parade, and the phoenix coronet. He didn't do it, but Nicole still got married. Victor suddenly remembered how, on their wedding night, he held his bride and promised her that once he bought a house in the city, he'd give her that grand, traditional wedding she always dreamed of. He didn't do that either. Tears streamed down uncontrollably, nearly blinding his eyes. He sat among the letters, flipping through memories one by one, finally overwhelmed with regret. He used to be so arrogant, swearing he would never do anything he'd regret. He believed that once he made a choice, he would stand by it without remorse. But he broke that oath. Losing Nicole was his greatest regret. He had made many mistakes, but betraying Nicole was the worst of them. Because she was proud too, she would never look back. But he did. He retraced his steps. Only this time, at the end of that road, she was no longer there. Chapter 15. The year I divorced Victor. Sophia was 4. She was eager to learn, already recognizing many words. She was also clever. She could remember all kinds of principles and truths. So when she started kindergarten, I decided to put my startup plans on hold. A little girl's vision deserves to explore a wider world. I took Sophia to many places. When we heard the call of the distant mountains, we headed to Gannan in western Sichuan. The journey was bumpy and rough, but she was braver than I was. We passed by alpine lakes, where the peaks stood tall in the distance, mirrored in the still surface of the water. She ran toward me with a beaming smile, her cheeks flushed red by the cold, pointing at the reflection in the lake, laughing with joy that outshone anything she ever felt at kindergarten. "Mommy, Mommy, the mountain is standing there, and here's another one in the water." When I was 18, I wanted to go to Tibet. Victor said money was tight, that once we were financially free, he'd take me. At 22, I wanted to go to Tibet. Victor said we had to prepare for the wedding, that we'd go for our honeymoon. At 26, I wanted to go to Tibet. Victor said the company was in a growth phase, and I needed to be understanding. Wouldn't it be better to go as a family with our child? No. At 28, I finally came to Tibet with my daughter. I held Sophia's hand as we stood at the foot of the Potala Palace. We saw cows roaming freely in search of food, and colorful prayer flags dancing in the wind. She clumsily held a camera and tried to take a photo of me. We visited Mani stones stacked high with blessings and wishes, traced the trickling streams formed from melted snow. We crossed mountain after mountain, chasing the dream that lies above the clouds. We scattered lungta, wind horses, into the sky, letting the wind carry our prayers. At 28, I lost my first love, but I never lost the courage to find myself. It was as if, in the moment I saw the pure and sincere eyes of the nomads, all my resentment vanished. I finally forgave myself. Victor, love is standing beside someone with the same rhythm and looking at the mountains and rivers of the world. Love is discovering who you are in each other's presence, not losing yourself in each other's absence. As the sunlight shimmered on the golden script of the great mantra engraved on the prayer wheel, I placed my palms together. Nicole, Tashi Delek. Epilogue, Chapter 1. In the end, Zoe lost her baby, but it wasn't by choice. A woman suddenly rushed at her, slamming violently into her not yet showing belly. The woman's eyes were filled with fury, her teeth clenched, her expression twisted with hatred so fierce it was as if she wanted to tear Zoe apart. "You filthy little whore! You stole my husband! I'll kill you!" The crowd's voices rose in waves, each word sharper than the last, disgust and judgment raining down on her like stones. Never would have thought such a pretty girl could do something so shameless. Had her fill of someone else's meal. Now she's licking the plate too, already pregnant. Huh? Trying to force her way into the wife's place? Who knows how many men she's been with. No shame at all. Morality these days, it's all gone. No decency left. Now even mistresses with baby bumps dare to show off? Zoe stared in disbelief at the crazed woman, almost suspecting that Nicole had sent her. But as the woman flailed and pounded her fists against Zoe's stomach again and again, Zoe could see clearly, the hatred in her eyes wasn't fake. Her vision blurred. But through the haze, she vaguely heard a man's voice stop the attacker and kneel beside her, apologizing. "My sister lost her mind after her husband cheated on her. The mistress brought her pregnancy right to our door, and she hurt my nephew. Ever since then, she can't stand to see pregnant women. We'll take you to the hospital right away. I'll cover all the expenses." The woman's brother helped her up. When he finally looked at Zoe's face, he gave a cold, mocking smile. "Well, look who it is. I guess my sister did justice for the heavens." It was only then that Zoe recognized him, one of Victor's old friends. Back when Victor still took Zoe to business dinners, people began to notice their improper relationship. After that, Victor's old friends gradually stopped associating with him. "Just a cheap life anyway," the man said with a sneer. "Her very birth was a sin. Cheap life. Zoe's chest tightened as she gasped for air. Mistresses have always been seen as filthy, objects of scorn, but was it all her fault? Her self-respect, her dignity, they'd both crumbled somewhere between her pleading and her submission. As she felt the blood beneath her pooling, endlessly seeping away, Nicole's face flashed in her mind. Victor had warned her repeatedly to stay away from Nicole. She hadn't listened. Victor had always been self-disciplined, rarely involved with women. That night she got what she wanted, only because she had spiked his drink, worn a dress identical to Nicole's, and trapped him in a moment of confusion. He stayed that one night, and for the next 2 years, she stayed, too. She thought she was special, but she wasn't. The cold instruments of the hospital scraped against her insides. The pain made her clutch her fists tight. Yet what surfaced in her mind wasn't fear or regret, but Nicole's calm, indifferent smile the day Zoe had come to confront her. No matter how Zoe provoked her, Nicole had simply replied, "All right." After Victor kicked her out, the money she had was stolen by her gambling-addicted brother. Just when she tried to start over, the accident happened, and she ended up back in the hospital. When Zoe finally woke up, she heard the doctor's apologetic voice. "Miss Zoe, I'm sorry to inform you, you will never be able to have children again. Also, if you don't start treatment soon, you're HIV." Her ears buzzed. Everything after that faded into nothing. Zoe only knew one thing. Her retribution had finally arrived. Epilogue, Chapter 2. Victor stared straight ahead, watching the backs of the mother and daughter, his right hand clenched tightly. When he saw Sophia throw herself joyfully into Oliver's arms, his body froze. His hands suddenly pressed down on either side of the steering wheel. By accident, he hit the horn, and a sharp honk pierced the air, but neither of them turned around. Oliver hoisted Sophia onto his shoulders and ran with long strides. Even amidst the chaos and noise of the crowd, Victor could still hear the delicate, bird-like laughter of his daughter. He had no choice but to admit they were both happier now than they ever were with him. Victor pressed against his lower abdomen, enduring the waves of dull pain that now struck him with numbing regularity. It wasn't until the second year after losing Nicole that he realized he had also lost his health and his luck. His life had drifted along in a haze, until one day, he noticed dark bluish bruises under his chest, and crimson blossoms blooming in hidden places. That day, uneasy and distracted, he was watching Nicole's travel vlog during a bidding conference when everything went dark. He passed out. When he woke up, an old friend was standing at his bedside, looking at him with a mix of disgust and pity. But in the end, he was still an old friend. His eyes were red, even as his words cut deep. "You'd better spend the rest of your damn life repenting for your sins." Victor, bearing the pain, reached for his medical records. His first reaction was oddly one of relief. He discharged himself from the hospital, went to the notary office to write his will, and then drove to Nicole's home. But in the end, he couldn't bring himself to go see them. Nicole still hadn't officially said yes to being with Oliver, but Victor figured it wouldn't be long now. Nicole had always been reserved on the outside, warm on the inside. If she hadn't pushed Oliver away, it meant she'd accepted his presence. Sophia clearly liked him too. When Nicole wasn't around, she would secretly call him Daddy Oliver. Victor's heart ached with a bittersweet sting. The love and happiness that once were his to hold, he now had to steal glimpses of like a thief. Before losing consciousness for the last time, Victor saw a vision, a young version of himself in school uniform, head tilted, asking, "Are you the Victor from 10 years in the future? Did you marry Nicole? I haven't confessed to her yet, but I believe she'll say yes." Victor hesitated for a long time before clenching his teeth and nodding. "Don't let her down. Be good to her, always. Always." The boy, with a school bag on his back and a love letter to Nicole in his hand, turned away, leaving only a silhouette behind. "Of course I won't betray Nicole. People who betray true love deserve to be pierced by 1,000 arrows." What does it feel like to be pierced by 1,000 arrows? Victor thought he knew now.